Now, I want you to picture Yellowstone National Park. It's world famous, right? You've got majestic wildlife, stunning, colorful landscapes, and, of course, those beautiful towering geysers drawing millions of visitors every single year. Imagine you're there. You can smell that faint, sharp scent of sulfur in the air, you hear the bubbling of the boiling hot springs. It feels peaceful. Honestly, it feels timeless. But those very same geysers and springs, they're actually subtle, simmering clues to one of Earth's absolutely greatest geological threats. Because hidden just beneath the ground in Yellowstone is a literal monster. We're talking about a giant magma chamber, a supervolcano so incredibly powerful that if it were to wake up, it could release an unimaginable amount of energy and literally change life across the entire planet. Today, we're going to explore exactly what the science says about this sleeping giant and unpack a scenario that, well, it sounds like pure science fiction, but it's grounded entirely in geological fact. Welcome to this explainer on the Yellowstone Supervolcano.
So, here is the ultimate terrifying hypothetical scenario. What if one of the most powerful volcanoes on Earth erupted tomorrow? I mean, we're not talking about a normal volcanic eruption here, the kind that might just make the evening news for a few weeks. No way. The stakes of an event like this are unimaginably high. An eruption from a source this massive wouldn't just be a local tragedy in Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho. It wouldn't even just be a national emergency for the US. The consequences would be entirely, inescapably global. It would touch every single continent, every ocean, and literally every person on Earth in a matter of days. But to truly understand how a single event could reshape human history overnight, we first need to look at the sheer scale of the mechanics buried beneath the park. Which brings us to Section 1, a monster beneath Yellowstone. Before we can really wrap our heads around the global fallout, we have to grasp the staggering geological reality of what scientists actually mean when they say supervolcano. Because on one hand, you have a typical volcanic eruption, which, don't get me wrong, is already a devastating natural disaster that can wipe out towns and completely alter local landscapes. But a supervolcano? That operates on an entirely different plane of existence. The energy released from the Yellowstone supervolcano would be thousands of times more powerful than a typical eruption. That's because the magma chamber down there isn't just some little pocket of lava. It is a colossal subterranean ocean of molten rock spreading deep beneath multiple states. It's basically acting like a continental pressure cooker. When a standard volcano blows, it takes off the top of a mountain. But when a supervolcano blows, it creates a massive caldera, literally swallowing the landscape and reshaping the geography of an entire continent.
Let's move on to Section 2, the immediate devastation.
When that pressure cooker finally breaches the surface, the reality on the ground would unfold in a rapid, brutal sequence. Step 1 is the massive explosion itself. We're talking about an earth-shattering, absolutely deafening release of force and heat that would instantly annihilate anything in its immediate vicinity. Step 2 is the violent ejection of material. It's hard to even picture, but think astronomical amounts of volcanic ash, toxic gases, and jagged glowing rock blasted tens of miles straight up into the stratosphere. Within just a matter of hours, a hyper-dense, terrifying cloud of smoke and debris would completely blot out the sun across the American West. And then, Step 3 is the catastrophic result. Entire regions near Yellowstone would just be instantly devastated. Lush forests, vibrant wildlife, modern infrastructure, all of it would be rendered entirely unrecognizable, buried deep beneath scorching flows of volcanic material.
But the thing is, this devastation wouldn't respect state lines or national park borders. This local explosion would trigger a massive, unstoppable wave of cascading failures all across North America. And it's mostly because volcanic ash is not like the soft, flaky ash you get from a campfire. It's essentially pulverized glass and jagged rock. It is incredibly dense, highly abrasive, and just exceptionally heavy. Because of that microscopic, jagged nature, air travel across the entire continent would be completely paralyzed. I mean, jet engines literally melt and seize up when they suck this stuff in. Down on the ground, roads and highways would be buried under thick, suffocating layers of it. Under the sheer weight of all that pulverized rock, roofs would actually begin to collapse. Power systems would fail as the heavy ash shorts out electrical grids and crushes transmission lines. And perhaps most critically for the immediate term, the region's vast agricultural belts would be smothered under a heavy blanket of toxic gray dust, basically choking off the nation's food supply right at the source.
And that leads us right into Section 3, the global volcanic winter. As North America grapples with this physical burial, the true existential threat actually begins to ride the upper atmosphere currents.
This is where it transforms from a continental disaster into a worldwide climate event. Within just days of the eruption, vast high-altitude clouds of ash and sulfur gases would sweep across the globe. They'd physically block sunlight from reaching the Earth's surface, turning the color of the sky worldwide into this hazy, ominous twilight. Moving into the weeks following the event, this massive atmospheric shield would trigger a dramatic drop in temperatures everywhere. The Earth would literally begin to freeze. And as this timeline stretches into months, well, the prolonged lack of sunlight and that sudden, unnatural cold would throw global agriculture into absolute chaos. Modern farming relies heavily on predictable seasons and steady sunlight, right? Without them, crops simply cannot grow. This specific climate shift actually has a name. It's known as a volcanic winter, which is a prolonged period of cooler global temperatures caused directly by ash and sulfur gases blocking the sun's warming rays. This right here is the exact mechanism by how a localized eruption in Wyoming suddenly becomes a devastating climate crisis in Europe, Asia, Africa, and beyond. You see, as those massive plumes of sulfur gases reach the stratosphere, they combine with water vapor to form highly reflective sulfuric acid aerosols. And because the stratosphere is so incredibly high up, these aerosols get quickly carried around the entire globe by high-speed winds. Once they're up there, they act like a giant planetary mirror, bouncing incoming solar radiation right back out into deep space. The planet darkens, the planet cools, and it plunges humanity into a sudden, deep freeze. Now, this sudden artificial winter leads to a pretty chilling reality for our everyday survival. Global food prices would rise exponentially. As that giant atmospheric mirror persists, reduced sunlight and plunging temperatures would cause crop yields to fail on a massive, unprecedented scale. And when global harvests shrink drastically, the available food supply simply vanishes. Those complex supply chains that we all kind of take for granted, they would completely break down. We wouldn't just be looking at, expensive groceries. We would be facing a global economic and humanitarian emergency. Societies everywhere would be forced to completely rethink how they sustain their populations in the face of a suddenly hostile, freezing climate. It would be an absolute mad scramble to secure enough basic calories just to keep human civilization functioning. Which brings us to our final chapter, Section 4, Surviving the Aftermath. I know it's an incredibly heavy, terrifying picture, but human beings are an amazingly resilient species. And amidst this whole apocalyptic scenario, there is an absolutely crucial scientific consensus to hold on to. Despite the dramatic effects, experts believe humanity would survive. Yes, the challenges would be unprecedented in recorded human history, but we're not living in the Stone Age anymore. We have modern technology, global communication, and just incredible human ingenuity. Through international coordination, societies could totally adapt to the new, colder reality. We'd likely rapidly pivot to advanced agricultural sciences, think massive indoor hydroponics, or tapping into those deep-freeze global seed vaults. We would shift our infrastructure to rely on geothermal and nuclear energy to provide heat and power when solar and traditional sources falter. It would absolutely require a monumental, unified global effort, but humanity possesses the tools and the collective intelligence to respond, adapt, and ultimately outlast a volcanic winter. And fortunately, we don't have to put those extreme survival skills to the test anytime soon. The Yellowstone Supervolcano is closely monitored, and there is absolutely no sign of an imminent eruption. In fact, it is arguably the most heavily scrutinized piece of geological real estate on the entire planet. Scientists aren't just out there guessing. They're utilizing incredibly advanced technology to keep a constant pulse on the magma chamber. We're talking satellite radar interferometry to detect millimeter-scale changes in the ground's elevation, highly sensitive thermal imaging, and a vast network of deep borehole seismometers, basically listening for the slightest subsurface rumble. And all that data is definitive. The underlying system is completely stable. The odds of this sleeping giant waking up in our lifetimes, or honestly even in the next few thousand years, are exceedingly, astronomically low.
Still, exploring this hypothetical scenario leaves us with a pretty profound sense of awe regarding the dynamic, powerful planet we call home and our delicate place upon it. So, I gotta ask, do you think humanity could truly handle a supervolcano eruption if the impossible happened tomorrow? Could we actually put aside our differences and adapt? Or would the cascading failures be too much for modern civilization to bear? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this explainer and want to keep exploring the most amazing, mysterious science facts of our universe, make sure to subscribe to CuriousOrbit. We've got plenty more premium, mind-bending topics to dive into together. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, stay curious.